We are going to be in Mark chapter 8, verses 11 and 12. Now, that's only two verses, as you heard me say, but they're so important, and I wanted to focus on them this evening. I seem to be solo unless somebody else pops in tonight. I don't know what's going on. I've been getting attacked spiritually left and right. So I have no doubt that this is the devil's way of trying to make me not want to do my Bible study tonight. And I know people watch the replay. And if it even touches one person and it even helps one person grow closer to Christ, then I am here doing exactly what I'm meant to be doing. And this actually touches a lot on what I'm going to talk about that's been going on. So we're in Mark chapter 8, verses 11 and 12. The Pharisees came and began to argue with him, demanding of him a sign from heaven to test him. Sighing deeply in his spirit, he said, "Why does this generation demand a sign? Truly, I tell you, no sign will be given to this generation." And then he left them, got back into the boat, and went to the other side. Now, I wrote here a couple things that are important to bring up, which is it says the Pharisees came, which means they weren't already there to interact. They weren't a part of the crowds for the teachings. They weren't already coming to see Jesus speak. They came for a purpose. They came to make sure that Jesus knew that they were in the presence and they wanted to be combative. They're plotting, remember, they're plotting against Jesus. They're trying to find any little thing that they can. Anytime that they do this, it's just proof that they have such stubborn unbelief. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. So I've heard people say before that requesting a sign from God to like ask him, like me asking him, for instance, God, I don't feel you, I don't see you, please give me a sign. Or somebody saying, I'll believe in you, God, if you show me you're real by giving me a sign, right? And people say that you're not supposed to do that. And sometimes they use this verse or another one, but they talk about you're not supposed to ask for signs. It's like disrespectful to God. It's showing your disbelief and your unbelief, right? But that's not always true. And I'll tell you why. So in this, the Pharisees came, right? The Pharisees, these are the religious leaders. These are the people that are trying to find any fault in Jesus, no matter how many times he has given them a sign, okay? So they're asking for a sign, yet they've already had many signs. I mean, I could go over it, but this entire Mark study is about all of the signs of Jesus being the deity. So he, it's like they're always saying that he's not proving who he is, but yet just who he is and what he does proves who he is. So obviously that's not true. Um, anyways, let's just reread that part. The Pharisees came and began to argue with him, demanding of him a sign from heaven to test him, sighing deeply in his spirit. I can only imagine the frustration that Jesus is having. He said, "Why does this generation demand a sign? Truly, I tell you, no sign will be given to this generation." He was talking obviously about that generation, but he was talking to the Pharisees specifically. Now, like I said, some people use this passage and other passages to say signs are bad, but I don't think that there's a one size fits all type of asking of the sign. I believe it's all your heart posture. And like I said, they have stubborn unbelief. That's a different kind of unbelief. And I've been coming across it a lot lately. The more I share about abortion, uh, pronouns, male and female, and how God created you male or female, and that the future is male and female, and that we, our identity is meant to be in Christ. The more that I share about that in any way that's a little bit taboo, controversial, they always try to hook it to the election, which is not all about the election, but of course, the election and what's going on is prominent in our faith right now because you'd be blind to not realize how spiritual this election is. However, people will come with stubborn unbelief. They don't want to believe anything you have to say. I've used my abortion post, for instance, that just started getting more traction again. I used it as a way to ask people when they tell me my sky daddy isn't real or they come at me sideways about my beliefs and how I shouldn't be making someone else believe. I can't make anybody do anything, obviously. And it's my platform that I'm sharing on. So obviously that's my choice as well. it's their choice to scroll or to comment. It's up to them, and I'm open to it, but they aren't open to it. Does that make sense? They aren't coming on there to learn something. They aren't even coming on there to debate. They're coming on there to be hateful. And it's like the demons around them are bothered by the Jesus in me. And that's true with a lot of comments I see on controversial posts like that. Because Jesus was controversial. Y'all, he went against the grain. These are the religious leaders that are giving him an issue, right? These are the people that when you go into the temple, they're the leaders in there. They are really important and high status, and they're the ones trying to tell him to prove he's God when he's time and time again giving them signs. That is stubborn unbelief. They don't want the sign. And I can only imagine if Jesus right then and there was like, okay, and healed somebody right in front of them or whatever, they would wish it away somehow. They would somehow say it was not a real sign. It was not a sign from God. It was this or it was that or it was, a demon or whatever it was. Like they always had a way to be like, no, I still don't believe you, because their heart posture was stubborn unbelief. So Jesus likes evidence. Okay. So every time that somebody always says, and I say somebody always, but every time I've heard it, I hear it a lot. People saying, you should not tempt him and say, like, prove to me you're real or this or that. I've known many people, and their testimony starts with saying to God on their knees at their end, like they're just so distraught. Their life is crumbling before them. They're like, God, if you're real, give me a sign. Can you see how that's different than saying, all right, show me if you're real. All right, I don't believe you're real. Just give me a sign. Like, obviously, their heart posture is different, and God can see all of that. He knows where we're coming from. So he knows what's genuine. He knows when somebody is actually trying to have an open mind, like that they would be willing, if they got that sign, to change their mind. Okay. Jesus likes evidence, and it's evident in the text. He has no problem showing us time and time again who he is with evidence. So, Mark chapter 3, Jesus heals a man with a withered hand right in front of the Pharisees. That wasn't enough for them, right? We've read about how he says, so you will know the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sin, get up and walk, right? That's when he did it right in front of them too. He's literally showing proof of his claims as he's saying it. The Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sin, get up and walk. He's saying he can forgive sin. Only God can forgive sin. And the Pharisees know that. And it's like, who is this man that can forgive sin? Only God can do that, right? So they keep asking for a sign. I mean, he fed the 5,000, and that's the 5,000 men, right? That's not the wives and children as well, the women and children as well. So clear over 5,000. And then again, he fed the 4,000, and that's again over 4,000. So sign after sign after sign after sign. And like I said, it doesn't matter because they don't want it. They always had an agenda. This isn't the Jesus that they prayed for. They prayed for somebody to overtake Rome. They prayed because they thought the second coming was coming first. It was going to be Jesus with the sword. Oh, we got somebody coming. So, hello. It's just you with me. No one else is here. But I decided to record anyways. So I've been talking to myself on the screen. So I appreciate you for being here.
I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't have my phone. I lost track of time.
You are fine. I've been recording for like 5 minutes. Recap what I read. I'm only reading 2 verses this week because they're like super on. Like they're
Okay.
go to another this topic.
Okay. Did you dye your hair? It looks cute.
Thank you. I did.
I love it.
It would last me longer in the winter months when money is a little.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing next week. Getting dark. Okay.
You're good.
Go ahead.
So it's Mark chapter 8, verses 11 and 12. And I just want to read them to you so you know what I'm talking about here. But it's the Pharisees came and began to argue with him, demanding of him a sign from heaven to test him. Sighing deeply in his spirit, he said, "Why does this generation demand a sign? Truly, I tell you, no sign will be given to this generation." And then he left them and got back into the boat and went to the other side. And I was explaining that his issue isn't that he's not willing to give signs or that he thinks it's wrong to ask for evidence or signs. His issue is that they have stubborn unbelief, and no matter what he's done, it doesn't matter. Their heart is not in the right place. Their heart posture isn't in the right place. And I literally gave the example that he healed the man's withered hand right in front of them, and all they worried about was the day he did it on. He said, that the Son of Man has the authority on earth to forgive sin, and he told the guy to get up and walk. He's telling them over and over again who he is. And so then they have the audacity to say to him, "Give us a sign." And I also brought up in the beginning, it says the Pharisees came and began to argue, meaning they weren't just there listening to the message. They went and approached him on purpose to make an issue, to be combative, because they're plotting against him. And in John 10:37-38, it says, "If I am not doing my Father's works, don't believe me. But if I am doing them and you don't believe me, believe the works. This way you will know and understand that the Father is in me and I in the Father." He's saying, even if you don't believe what I'm telling you, believe because of the works that you've seen, because of the evidence. And I was touching on the topic that a lot of people do not, they want to say that you shouldn't ask God for signs, right? And they cherry pick different verses, but like this, verses like this. But what they're not realizing is it's all about the heart posture. If you're on your knees and you're begging God to give you a sign because you're searching for him, and you don't even know if he's real, but there's got to be something out there, and you're just at your wits end, and you're depressed, you're suicidal, whatever it is, but like you really are looking and searching, he'll give you a sign, and he will never make you feel bad for that. He wants to give us evidence. He's given us this whole book full of evidence. That's why he made it so that Christ had to fulfill prophecy, because it's evidence. It's just more evidence to add to things. That's why it's been this many years, 2,000 years, and we're still talking about this, because he is given us this evidence to use. He's given us this substantial evidence and ways to back it up, and different sources and all of these eyewitnesses. This was all strategic. This was all part of his plan, because he knows people are going to doubt. I was talking about how recently in anything I post, people don't come from a place of genuine debate. They come from a place of, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. Don't press your views on me. You're wrong. And that's that. They have stubborn unbelief. They have nothing in them that has even a little bit of curiosity. They don't want to move. They don't, like, even when I was not actively, following Christ, I wasn't going to look at you and be like, maybe your Bible is or isn't real. I was just like, I don't care if it is or not, because I don't want to follow anybody and do that. But my mind wasn't so closed that you weren't going to be able to tell me, that your beliefs matter to you and all this. Like, I wasn't going to push mine on you, vice versa. I didn't want either one. It wasn't combative. But a lot of people are combative, and I really think it's the enemy. So is my Wi-Fi going out, or is it yours? Because I know you're getting.
Probably mine. I'm in a place with no internet.
You're okay. But then I wanted to bring up, because I think it's really important, and it doesn't get talked about a lot. And I loved this when I listened to a sermon about it, because it made me think, and it gave me so much peace, is that John the Baptist even questioned it. At one point, John the Baptist questioned if Jesus was who he said he was, because he had so much adversity. He had so much opposition, and he's in prison. He's having all these issues. And in Luke 7:18, it says, "Then John's disciples, John the Baptist, told him about all these things. So John summoned 2 of his disciples and sent them to the Lord, asking, 'Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?'" And when the men reached him, they said, John the Baptist sent us to ask you, are you the one who has come, or should we expect someone else? And at that time, Jesus healed many people of diseases, afflictions, and evil spirits, and he granted sight to many blind people. He replied to them, go and report to John what you have seen and heard. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, those with leprosy are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised, and the poor are told the good news, and blessed is the one who isn't offended by me. And to me, John the Baptist, the one that made the way, he quite literally saw the Holy Spirit, land on him like a dove. He literally saw all of this. He heard the audible voice of God, and he still questioned it. So if he can question it, and Jesus, instead of meeting him with anger and like disbelief of how could he knows he's human and understands all of the opposition and hurt and things he's gone through. And he's like, just tell him what you saw, and that'll be his answer. So that gave me a lot of peace, that not only is it okay for us to doubt sometimes, it's okay to question things and understand that sometimes we don't understand it all, and to know exactly who Jesus is and know God, but understand we don't know it all, and that that's okay. And that he meets that with love and compassion, because he understands that we can only understand so much. And he doesn't fault us for wanting a sign or saying, God, please show me your, I want to feel your presence. He does not fault us for feeling distant from him. He doesn't fault us for those things, because we are human. And even Jesus hanging on the cross, he said, Father, have you forsaken me? Because he didn't feel him, because he was separated from him in that moment. And he felt like, where are you? So even Jesus knows exactly how it feels to feel distant from God. And I just think it's really important to not be hard on ourselves about that, so that when people are questioning our faith or pushing like they do, for me, it's always social media, every now and then in person, but most of the time it's social media, because I'm a stay-at-home mom and I don't go a lot of places. But when they do, they like to cut you down. And just imagine, Jesus never told somebody that he was God until they asked. So he never defended his name. He would tell them when they asked, but he never made a point of being like, hello, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hang on a cross, and I'm going to defeat death in the grave. Like, he doesn't do that. He's meek, he's kind, he's humble. And I have to remind myself of that, that it doesn't always, opposition doesn't always have to be met with an answer. Opposition doesn't always have to be met with an aha, I gotcha. Because I know my God, and I know what he's done for me, and I know he's real, and I know heaven's waiting for me. And I want to lead other people to Christ. And if they're open to learning, and they're open to even a little discussion, even a little debate, even if they're not always super warm and fuzzy, but they have that little thing where they ask me, like, they have a question, like, how are you so sure? Or how do you know he's real? That's when you have an open crack, like a crack in the door. Now, when they're just like plain hateful to you, if you say something kind back and it doesn't soften them and they come right back at you, it's time to just let it go. I'm not saying to not debate. I'm not saying to not have defense of your faith. I'm just saying that at some point you might be met with stubborn unbelief like the Pharisees, and they're just not going to believe you, even if you do a healing right in front of them. They're going to explain it away. And I think it's important that Jesus wants to give evidence to us, but only if it's sincere when we're asking for it. That is what is so important. When the Pharisees come asking for evidence, he'd already given them so much. And that's when you realize it's a hard issue. And a lot of times it's a hard issue. It's hurt and it's life experience. And that's something you can't change. You can't make somebody have a different vantage point. And then I wrote on here, because I thought it was really interesting, my daughter has been playing paint on my computer, playing, drawing paint on my computer. And I have a laptop. And so when it's a certain like way, when you move the screen, I'm taller than her. So when we were sitting together, I'm higher up and she's lower, and she's asking me, does this color look right? And she's copying her movie and her characters, and she's asking me, does this look like their dress color? Does this look like their hair color, whatever? And I'm telling her yes. And then she puts it on there. She's like, Mama, that doesn't look right. That doesn't look right. And I realized it's because we're seeing it the same exact picture, but from two vantage points. And it really made me think. Sorry, my nose is really stuffy. It really made me think about how when you come to Christ, that is why our testimonies are so important. Because when you come to Christ, you come from two different vantage points. When you're talking to somebody else, they are not always going to see things the way you see it. Even if they follow Christ, they still might have a totally different outlook. That's why the word is so important, because it's God's truth. And with God's truth, you're met and you feel offended and you feel confused, but at the same time, he's giving you all the answers. It's just that maybe you have your guard up a little bit, and it's because of your vantage point. And everybody's feelings are that they're important, they're their feelings, but they are feelings, and God is bigger than our feelings. And we have to remember that when we're being met with opposition, especially when it comes to somebody attacking our faith, attacking God. You want to have like this righteous anger. You want to support him and tell them how great he is, and don't talk about my God that way. But he sees all, he knows all. He knows your heart, and he knows theirs, and he knows the hurt that they've had, and he knows what you don't know about them, and he knows that they're struggling. And that's why we're supposed to be more and more like Jesus, because when you can meet somebody that is maybe coming from a really, really hard place in life, and it sounds as if they're tearing down your faith, but really they just never had anything like you've had before. And they don't even know how to approach it. And they get very, very defensive about how can your God tell me how to live my life, is really where it comes from. And that's when you have to be meek. And really look up that word. That is what I want everybody's homework to be, is look up the word meek and look up Jesus being meek. Because when you think about the fact that he could have told them who he was every second of every day, and he didn't. He was humble. He is God the whole time. And yet he is a friend. He is a son. He is a brother. He's meek. He doesn't push until it's warranted. He doesn't force. He can't make you do anything, but he's going to stand strong in his faith and what he knows to be true. And he's immovable. You cannot move him, but you will not be met with him being angry at you when it's not warranted. Like, he's not going to just be angry because he's offended. He expects it, and he expected it then, and he told us to expect it. So that's why those two verses, I didn't want to go any further, because we go into a whole other topic as the book goes on. But I've been met with so much hate lately in comments, and it's not like, they really don't tear me down. I've noticed lately that I'm getting better at seeing it, because I realize that it's just that it's people that are hurt and broken, or maybe they have, Satan all over them. Like, they might not even know themselves why they're so bothered, because they stop by to make a comment. For what? I don't know. To me, it's like, I just scroll. If I don't like something, I'm just going to keep scrolling. But when it's Satan, he can't scroll, and it's like, when you look at it like that and you see that it could be a person that maybe was in the same place you were and has the devil preying on them, just like you've had him prey on you, it gives you a different way to approach them. And that's where Jesus is coming from, is that I always say this, Danica, I say it every time. I'm like, my friend Danica said, you never looked in the eyes of somebody Jesus didn't die for. And I will say that every single time I'm talking like this, because that is what brings me down to reality. I'm like, you are not important. Jesus died for them too. Like, you are just as important as they are. So that's where I'm going to end it. I really appreciate you coming, Danica, and I appreciate anybody that watches the replay because I think we all need to hear this. It's really hard to live out your faith when people are going to constantly want you to defend it. It's hard, but Jesus told us. He told us it would be hard. And so that being said, because he told us it would be hard, he gave us a whole book of evidence and knowledge and comfort and love. And it's just so important to stay in it. And that's what I keep telling myself. I got to stay in here because that's what's going to give me the real truth that I need to hear. So if you don't mind, Miss Danica, I'm going to pray us out and then we will be done. Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for Danica and anybody else that watches this. I pray that they all get closer to you, Lord, that they want to read their word more, that they want to just learn more and more about you, that they want to defend their faith, but they don't feel the need to defend their faith with stubborn unbelief. They are met with kindness and peace and the peace that surpasses all understanding that only you can give us, Lord. And they understand that these people have been hurt and they have been led astray, and that you are the only one. You are the only one that can do the miracles that can change their heart, but that we are just here to plant the seeds and share the goodness of you, Lord. So I just pray that we keep getting closer to you and that we keep just walking out our faith for everyone to see and that we represent Jesus well, Lord. And I pray for everybody's families and their health and their safety. In your name, Jesus, I pray. Amen. All right, girly. I love you. I appreciate you. And I
Thank you.
hope you have the best weekend ever.
Thank you. I'm sorry I was late again.
You're fine. Thank you for being here.
Bye.